Fight fans, once again, welcome to DAZN MMA. I am Sean O'Connell, joined as always by Dan Hardy. Outlaw, we got to talk about it. Misfits boxing card over the weekend, right here on DAZN. It was the circus we expected it to be. Obviously, KSI, Tommy Fury in the main event, and more eyes really on the co-main event because of the Logan Paul, Dillon Danis run-up, the trash talk, all that stuff to the fight. Ugly is probably the right word for how this thing turned out. What'd you think?
Yeah, and and not at all surprising, really. I mean, I just all the build up and everything, even like them weighing in and facing off in those, plexiglass cages, they look like hockey players that were in the sin bin. It was such a weird thing. But it's I'll be honest, I know that when all these like influencer boxing events started, they were getting loads of heat and people were complaining, oh, these guys have got no experience and no boxing background and making loads of money and etc. etc. But that to me felt so much closer to pro wrestling than any combat sports event I've ever witnessed. So it almost I don't know, I kind of feel like there's like this middle ground now that exists that we've not necessarily considered before. And then it made me think back, and you probably remember this as well as I do, the old school Japanese pro wrestlers that would also enter pride fighting championships and get KO'd horrendously by MMA fighters because there wasn't really much of a difference between Japanese hardcore pro wrestling and full rules MMA. Like they used to hit each other with planks and throw each other onto nail boards and all kinds of madness. So like that hardcore style of pro wrestling, for me, it's almost there's almost like a gray area now that seems to exist. And for me, that event captured it perfectly because everyone was there. They weren't there to see the best fighters in the world because they weren't there, right? They weren't even there to see the best top 100 fighters in the world because they were maybe in the building, but they certainly weren't in the ring. They were there for an entertainment and a spectacle, and that's what they got. It was packed. I had a couple of people there, a few rows from the front, and they were sending me videos of the crowd, and it was wild. But it's not really combat sports. It's like adult pro wrestling.
Yeah, it's spectacle, right? And it's entertainment, and it's wild tomfoolery and shenanigans and chicanery like you never see, thankfully, in the real world of combat sports anymore. But in this fight, which ended officially via DQ because Dillon Danis put on the pathetic boxing performance that those of us in the know expected from him. And then, there were these weird moments where security jumped in the sixth round because he was shooting takedowns and trying body locks and all this kind of thing. And then, of course, he tried a guillotine submission and Logan Paul missed a hammer fist, and it wasn't a boxing match. It was a free-for-all at the end. And people who spent their money on this got their money's worth because if you were, like you said, tuning in for high-level boxing, you were in the wrong place.
Yeah, and I don't mind that. I don't mind what it is because it does have a certain audience, doesn't it? And these guys are almost it's weird because they're kind of like parodies of people that have come before them. I remember early days when we saw Jake Paul licking the back of his gloves like BJ Penn. You know what I mean? It's like they've seen it as a kid and they want it to be it so much. You know what I mean? And Dillon Danis is basically trying to do what Nate Diaz did to Jake Paul recently, and but you can't do it with the same kind of swagger if you don't have the same kind of swagger. The occasion was different, and Dillon Danis is just not that guy. It was his opportunity to cash in. I think that ticket runs out very quickly because I think people will get bored of him very quickly. KSI and Tommy Fury, it's a different thing. Tommy Fury's, I think he's better suited to the influencer boxing than actual boxing because I think he's going to get further and make more money doing it. And with his dad John Fury in tow, trying to fight everybody in the room, it's so much closer to reality TV pro wrestling than anything else. It's a mad thing.
For me, an event like that is perfect because everybody except for Dillon Danis understands their role and understands their place, right? KSI knows that he's an internet celebrity who's taking this boxing thing very, very seriously. And when he loses a decision, he knows that he can't be a good sport about it and just, yeah, I performed well. It was a good fight, but he's got to start appealing and crying about it and making noise because his fans expect that he's going to do that, right? And I think that you're right. I think that the whole Fury camp now understands that they have Tyson, who is every ounce a legitimate heavyweight world champion, right? And he should be treated that way, and he should compete that way, and he should conduct himself that way. And they also understand that the quickest road to wealth and, long-term happiness maybe for Tommy is to just do this, to have the spectacle fights and do the silliness, right? And I think he understands that, and very clearly Big John understands that, right? And Logan, much like KSI, understands that he is a brand and he just has to fit the brand. And I think it got a little bit personal and he wanted to actually break Dillon's face because of all the comments about his fiance and whatnot. But he understands, like, he's there to cash checks and to get eyeballs and all that kind of thing. And only Dillon Danis is the guy that doesn't understand his role in all this. He believes that people actually care about him winning. Only he believes that people actually listen to the words that come out of his mouth. Only he believes that he is like a main character instead of some accessory to the fact here. And so it's fun. Like 3/4 of that is fun for me. And then that 1/4 of it, I'm just like, I next time let's put him in with a silverback gorilla and just watch it rip his arms off or something.
I kind of would like to see him up against the doorman that that Logan Paul brought to the face-off. The guy that choked him out. Yeah, funnily enough, as you said that, I'm just trying to. It's the first time it's ever come into my head, but I'm trying to figure out whether Dillon Danis is more like Bebop or Rocksteady off the Ninja Turtles. You know what I mean? Like, he thinks he's Shredder, but he's not. He's not. He's either Bebop or Rocksteady, and I'm not sure which he's closer to.
You know what I want? I think that because he conducted himself so poorly and performed so poorly, that like someone else should be able to dictate what happens for him next. And what I want is I want him to actually have to do high-level grappling matches, like in public, with a lot of eyes on them, so everyone can see that he's actually not that good at that either. That's what I want to see. I want to see, like, Dillon Danis has to now go out and try and defend what tiny, like, minuscule credential he still has in the combat sports world, which of course exists in grappling. We know he's a bad MMA fighter, right? I want to see him now just like take on not even the best in the world, like take on some like decent college wrestlers who also dabbled in jiu-jitsu and watch him lose to those guys so that everyone can just be like, okay, no credibility anywhere, and then he can disappear and we don't have to deal with them anymore.
I don't mind that. But then you might as well, if you're getting crazy, like might as well put him in there with the Artem Lobov and have Conor McGregor in Dillon Danis's corner. Like, that seems like something that would fit on a Misfits boxing event.
It's perfect. So look, Misfits boxing is that middle ground. It's the show between pro wrestling and actual combat sport, and there's a place for that. There's clearly an audience for that. And there's always going to be fighters to populate these fights, right? There's always going to be people who are like in shape and want to dabble. They want to try their hand at this and have a beef with somebody. In fact, this should be how like soccer players, basketball players, football players, in hockey, they already fight on the ice, so you don't have to use hockey players. But anyone who like gets in a beef and gets in a fight and has penalties and hurts their team with stuff like that on another competitive field, they should have to migrate over to squash the beef in Misfits boxing. I would like this to be the legislative body for all of those beefs that happen in other pro sports.
Yeah, I'm not against that idea. Super Brawl had something going quite similar where they used to have like neighbors fighting each other over a dispute about a lawnmower and stuff. And that'd be on the undercard, and you'd have great fighters like Egan Inouye up at the top. I don't think it's a bad idea, especially if they're celebrities. It would make sense.
NBA player versus NBA player, just two tall freaks swinging away at each other. Logan Paul in the main event later on. We'd all watch it.